Good day, everyone. My name is Jeff Young, Western Project Coordinator with Skills Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. And today I have Stephen Lawson here with us. Mi'kmaq, sorry about that. Mi'kmaq Stone Carver. So could you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Sure. I'm Steve. I'm from Gander. I grew up in Gander, did all my schooling there, and a lot of the family in Gander Bay. But I moved away shortly after high school and joined the military. I did 25 years in the Canadian Air Force and traveled all over the world as a mechanic. And since my retirement in 2015, I've taken on a second career as a stone carver, an artist.
Wow, interesting. So what inspired you to get into carving?
That's a very strange and long story, I guess. I've always had a skill set of working with my hands, even from a young age, working on bicycles and doing various crafts. I think my earliest memory is when my grandfather taught me how to make a little whistle out of a piece of alder. So that took a lot of patience and skill to trim and slide the bark off of the alder and carve the whistle and then put the alder back on the bark. So
Interesting. Yeah.
And I kind of developed patience to be able to do delicate work like that and keep focused on it for a long period of time. And then while I was in the military, I was a member of the Defense Aboriginal Advisory Group.
Oh, interesting.
And we had various events and meetings all across the country over the years. One in particular, I was talking with an Ojibwe friend at a powwow, and they had just finished creating an eagle staff for the military, for the Canadian forces, that it needed a stand. And he had told me about himself and another member of the Defense Aboriginal Advisory Group had a vision of a platform stand made out of wood with a stone carved turtle to be as a ballast weight on the bottom of that stand. So I had always had this interest, that I would like to try carving stone, but I'd never really done it. So when I was having that conversation with him, something just clicked and said, you know what, I'd like to try that. Because he was talking about the head of the eagle staff was done by a fellow from Newfoundland that had carved an eagle head out of the antler and was on top of the eagle staff. So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to contribute, So it took a year, but I carved, I think it was about 35 pounds soapstone turtle. That was my first carving. It was
a big one.
It was a learning curve. I had used some power tools on it, used some hand tools on it, and I tried to, not a lot of detail in it because I tried to keep it heavy as a base for the stand. When I finished it, I was living in Manitoba at the time. I sent it to Nova Scotia for them to use, and then I ended up moving to Germany. So long story short, it never came to be. The carving and the wooden part were never completed as a set, and then the carving disappeared. So a couple of years back, I did some research and had some friends trying to track it down. So I know where it is now. It's in Halifax.
Okay.
So someday I hope to get that back and complete the stand for the military myself. But that was the beginning of it.
That was the beginning, yeah. That's how it all started. Yeah. So I guess how does your work, what does it say about your culture and your identity?
Well, that first carving, like I said, was for the Defense Aboriginal Advisory Group. Mm-hmm. And that group helped me to embrace my Mi'kmaq culture. In Newfoundland, in the community where I grew up in Gander and Gander Bay, it wasn't hidden. My family, we knew we were Mi'kmaq, but there wasn't a larger Native community around us like you see out in Flat Bay or in Con River places like that. It was, we were all descendants of the same family that settled in the area. So it wasn't until I joined the military and went across Canada and visited Mohawk territory, Anishinaabe territories, Cree territories, and now I'm out here with Saanich territories in British Columbia. I see so much of the different Aboriginal cultures across the country. It's overwhelming. And so when I started really getting into my carving, I felt that was something that I wanted to portray in my art. Sometimes it's just as simple as the name for the piece, and then other times it becomes more detailed. But each piece is different.
That's right. That's interesting. So do you have any examples there with you?
Oh, certainly. Lots of them. This one is a small salmon, blamu.
Wow.
And this is carved in Minnesota pipestone. And we have the suckerfish writing. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, carved into the side of it. And because salmon was a staple diet of the Mi'kmaq people, and especially in my area with the Gander River, my grandfather was a guide and uncles were a guide. We all grew up fishing and having salmon in the house. So that suckerfish writing is the early Mi'kmaq writing system that says a section of the Lord's Prayer, and it means give it our nourishment to us. Yeah, in Mi'kmaq.
Interesting. Yeah. So what do you use all different kinds of stone to carve?
I do. I mean, there's thousands of different types of stone, right? The key thing for me is the hardness level, because I don't like to use any power tools. I try to avoid all that as much as I can. So just using basic hand tools in my hands, it takes a lot longer, but I feel more connected to the piece when I do it that way.
Absolutely.
So I'll show you some tools here quickly. This one is a large rasp.
Okay.
Very coarse, and that'll take the flesh off your hands. And then this one is a diamond coated file. And so the type of stone will determine which one of these tools I'll use. So soft stones like soapstone and pipestone, they are pretty easy to work with. Like some of them you can even scratch with your fingernail. So a rasp or a basic file, even a knife, will remove stone material. But if you get into harder stones like a pebble that you'd find on a beach, or granite or marble, sometimes you need to move to the diamond ones, and they'll remove the stone easier.
Wow, interesting. So what kind of, I guess, unique skills that you would need for this art?
Patience. Patience is a big one. Dexterity with your hands, just being able to see the image that you want to have come out of the stone, and then just keep working it. I think most artistic skills like that, stone carving, painting, beadwork, you got to have patience and physical dexterity. Even like knitting, watching my mother knit, I mean, those things take a lot of hand skills and patience. And each one of those, the more you practice of that type of thing, the better you get at it.
Okay, excellent. So what advice would you give to a young person wanting to start this?
Experiment. Keep trying, a couple of pieces that I have done were actually soft stone that I had found in thrift stores. They were bookends and stuff and pencil holders that have become broken and damaged over time. Someone donated them to the thrift store, and they end up on the counter for like 95 cents or something like that, right? So if you don't have access to an art store or a stone supplier that you can get stones from, that's a good source. And you just take a local file out of your shed and have at it. And over time, the more you practice, the easier your vision will come out of what you want to carve. That like I've had no formal training
Wow.
in this art form whatsoever. And I've went to a carving competition in Ottawa a couple years ago. I didn't participate, but I watched and tried to learn some things that they do, and also on YouTube and stuff like that. I was really surprised at how many carvers incorporate all of these drawings and measurements onto the stone, and for me, that's almost nil, if at all. And it's a learning process. I'll show you another carving here. This one is called, if I can pronounce it right, Giseldumdik, which is love unconditional and mutual in Mi'kmaq. And it's an adult hand with an infant's hand grabbing the finger. And
that's very nice.
when I became a grandfather, that was something that I really envisioned when I held my grandchild in my hands, or both my grandchildren, and they grab your finger as an infant. I don't know if you've felt that. And that image came into my head of something that I would like to carve. So when I started with this stone, I didn't have a clay model to look at or anything like that. I looked at my own hand and would just start cutting on the stone. And it took a while, but the image came to life, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. So what kind of stone is that?
This one is a type of soapstone, and
Okay.
soapstone comes in hundreds of varieties of colors and textures with different minerals in it. And so if you can see the black coloring in this stone is quite soft, but the lighter brown mineral is actually quite hard. So this piece was actually kind of frustrating to carve, because some areas would be easy and other areas would be hard.
Wow. So what are some challenges you face as an entrepreneur?
Getting started was difficult at first. I remember the first couple of carvings that I did, they were gifts for family members and friends. I did some jewelry pieces and a couple of small birds. And a friend said, you're really good at this. You should start a business and start selling this stuff. And at the time, I wanted nothing to do with that, because the experience of sitting there and carving was personal for me, right? Almost spiritual. And I enjoyed that serenity of carving. So the idea that popped into my head was mass production factory, and people want, and all about money. And the idea of a business scared me, right? But as I started making more carvings and started posting images on social media, I got such positive feedback from people and people wanting to buy them. I started thinking more positively about that idea. And then, I thought about going out to local craft markets and stuff like that. And I discovered quickly that there's a lot of permits involved in that sort of stuff, and taxation for sales, and then percentages that you need to pay to the market and all this sort of stuff. So I started looking into it more online, on how to set up a business and things needed for business. And a lot of people were after money from me to do these things, and I didn't feel comfortable doing that either. So through social media, I discovered through a local First Nation here that they were offering online free skills development training. And I've seen that in a couple of different places now. I've also, through the Wabanaki or Mawiomi art is what it's called, through New Brunswick. And there's a Newfoundland Arts Association as well that's been doing that sort of stuff. And it helps you learn the basic skills that you need. A business name that has to be approved first. And then you have to apply to create your business. And there's many different types of business. So it was a learning process all the way along to set up a basic entrepreneurship or a partnership, all words that you pick up and learn as you go along. And it doesn't happen overnight. So patience that I already had from carving, that helped me in establishing that. But once all that was said and done, and I was officially a business with a business number and a name that was official, I went out and got some business cards done and little pamphlets. And then I discovered taxation, which none of the training stuff that I went through on how to set up a business talked about. So then I discovered that there's provincial taxes, government, there are national taxes for GST and that sort of stuff. And then the regulations of being a First Nation member, whether or not taxes are required, varies, whether or not you're on a reserve or off reserve, and who that purchaser is, whether or not they are a status First Nations member. It's huge.
Lots to learn.
Yeah.
And so what is your experience with COVID did with your business? Was there much of an effect?
For me, no, because I'm just a home-based business. I sit outside in my yard or in my shed, and that's where I do my work. So I don't have a storefront per se anywhere. Most of my business dealings are done through social media. So I didn't have to. Oh, are you still there? I lost you for a second.
No, we're here.
Okay. So yeah, through social media, mostly on Facebook and Instagram, I'll get a message from somebody that says they like this carving and they want to know more about it. So I ask them where they're from. If they're, like, I live in British Columbia right now, if it's a local person in British Columbia, I have to take provincial sales tax. I don't make enough right now. If you have a large income from your business, that's when you have to start paying GST. So I don't have to collect GST because I don't make enough for that right now. And if I sell my artwork to Newfoundland or Nova Scotia as one of sales, I don't make enough that I have to collect provincial sales tax for that province. So it works out good in that way that I don't have to collect that provincial sales tax from that person.
Okay, excellent. That's good to know.
So for COVID, what you were asking,
Yes.
because I don't have a lot of person-to-person interaction with customers, it hasn't been much of an effect for me, other than that a lot of people that have been laid off from businesses that are exposed to large crowds of people have lost their jobs and are unable to afford purchasing art.
That's right. So if somebody wanted to buy your art or have a look at it, you have a Facebook page and an Instagram page?
I have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Vimeo.
Oh, okay. Wow. So you're on pretty much everything.
Yeah, trying to.
Yeah.
Most of my followers and most of the images of my artwork are all on my Facebook page.
On your Facebook page.
And that's where you can see prices of stuff that I sell as well.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Steve, for this.
No problem.
I will be sure to check out your Facebook page, and I'll be reaching out.
Awesome. Yeah, I show a lot of pictures on the Facebook page, right from the beginning stages and all the way up to the end of a carving.
Okay, so we can see the whole process.
Yeah, and a lot of people seem to enjoy seeing that.